All right, we're back another Saturday on All Things Relevant Media, our Black Media Network, and this is the Watchdog Saturday at noon. And we have an early caller. Look at that. So Julius, we're back again on a Saturday. We have a special guest, and if you will introduce yourself, I'm sure everyone knows, but Julius, if you tell us who you are and introduce our guest, and we'll get started.
Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon. I'm Julius Hall. Y'all know who I am. The guy who talks all the noise and everybody loves to hate. But only those that love to hate me, they know what the deal is.
They just hate the Devil Bells, the Wolverines.
Oh, that's the other show I talk about everybody in it. Not that. Okay. We're happy to have everybody. Y'all tune in and share. We got a delightful conversation coming on with the judge and Joe Huffman, who was a local homegrown talent out of Savannah off of Quapo Road over there.
Okay.
So we're going to let him introduce himself and go from there. Judge, tell us who you are and what the deal is.
Hey, well, first and foremost, thank you both for allowing me to come on this broadcast. I love an opportunity who wants to give up an opportunity to talk about themselves, right? That's what I always not just kidding. My name is Joe Huffman. I'm from Savannah. I'm a product of the public school system here. Went to Windsor Elementary, Durin Middle, Savannah High School, finished up at the Arts Academy. I'm currently running for Recorder's Court Judge. Chief Judge Tammy Stokes is going to be moving on to Superior Court, leaving a seat, one of the 3 seats in Recorder's Court open. I'm running to fill that seat. My professional background, as it relates to law, started back in 2007 when I became a police officer here after undergrad, and I served as a police officer for 4 years. Then went to law school. I joined the Army National Guard during law school, and then after law school, came back home, opened my own firm where I became a criminal defense attorney and child advocate. I have spent the majority of my career doing those things. In addition, I became a prosecutor in a couple of the city courts, solicitor. So the prosecutor in Pooler, in Port Wentworth. And then a couple of years ago, back in 2019, I became a judge in the city courts. And since that time, I've sat as a judge in Pooler Municipal Court, Garden City Municipal Court, Port Wentworth Municipal Court, Ludwig Municipal Court, Chatham County State Court, and Chatham County Juvenile Court, and Bryan County State Court. I've presided over 7,000 cases as a judge, ranging from bench trials, plea hearings, first appearances, bond hearings, arraignments, motion hearings, everything but having a jury trial I've done as a judge. And so that's a brief background. There's a ton more that I could get into, but not related to law. And so based on that experience, I'm running for Recorder's Court Judge. Essentially, a judge's job is to ensure equal justice under the law, period. Without that, the justice system doesn't work for everyone. And if it doesn't work for everyone, it doesn't work for anyone. I mean, it cannot get more simple. It doesn't matter the programs you put in place, the priorities you have, the diversion program, all of that is irrelevant if the goal isn't to have equal justice under the law. Everybody that comes in the courtroom is treated like that, an individual, because we're not, it's so stupid to say, we're not cookies, right? So we can't have cookie cutter solutions to how we handle cases. And equal justice under the law doesn't mean a predisposed disposition. It doesn't mean that you're going to be overly harsh or overly lenient. It doesn't mean anything but treating people like people individually. We're all in this human experience together. So let's try to act like it and treat each other like we want to be treated. And that's my goal as a judge. It's what I've been doing as a judge. It's what I'll continue to do if I'm elected. Yeah, so that was a lot of talking, but I'd be happy to, go from there.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of questions. I think you failed the first question. We all know that Windsor Forest High School is the best high school in Savannah, and Jamal Teray would agree with me. But
he definitely failed the first question. He definitely failed the first question.
Right.
Well, is Windsor High School? Did they get elevated to a high school today? I wasn't aware when that happened. Must have been.
No, you should know that the best high school is the Wolverines out on the west side of Savannah. The Wolverines.
You mean Groves?
No, Tompkins. Y'all better recognize.
Look, it was so good they shut it down. Right.
There you go. The Devil Bears.
Okay, well, we're not gonna hold the fact that you went to Savannah High against you.
Right. Well, I had a cousin that attend there and finished there, so it's a good place. But Judge, one of the things we love to make sure people understand is why does it matter to them, and the particular court that you're running for. If you could help us understand why does it matter, if you could break it down for us, and then we'll kind of go in that direction.
Okay, so not to get too nerdy, right? But there's different kinds of courts, and in Chatham County, when it comes to the state of Georgia, not dealing with the federal system, you have Superior Court, which deals with felony criminal matters, and felonies are punishments that involve over a year in prison at least. I hear some music. Do I need to?
That's Julius. No.
Okay. Superior Court also.
I'm like, that is not what you want to be playing. That's scary. Why are you trying to scare the people?
So Superior Court also deals with civil matters such as family cases like divorces, child custody. Then you have State Court, which deals with all misdemeanor criminal cases. Misdemeanors carry penalties of 12 months in jail or less, and usually $1,000 or less in fines, but sometimes you can have $5,000 up in fines. So those are the two higher courts, quote, higher courts. But you have a lower court. In the cities, they're municipal courts, right? A lot of people refer to those as traffic courts. But they also deal with preliminarily criminal matters. And Recorder's Court is just that. It's a court of initial inquiry for most criminal matters. It's traffic court. It deals preliminarily with felony matters, and it can actually dispose of all misdemeanors. Another way to think about Recorder's Court is it is the gateway to the courthouse. You do not move up to State Court or Superior Court for the vast majority unless you go through Recorder's Court. You are more likely to appear in Recorder's Court than anywhere else. You're more likely to face a traffic ticket than you are something more serious, such as bank fraud, right, or armed robbery, for the most part. And so because of that, the Recorder's Court judges interact more with the public, interact more with constituents that come in there having received an alleged violation of the law. And so for that court, so that's the differences in the courts. And I think it's important for the public to be aware of this opening because of the very nature of how you, your friends, your family are more likely to appear before a Recorder's Court judge. Based on that alone, you're more likely to have contact, interaction, and involvement and a dependency on a good judge in that court. And so then you have to ask yourself the question, well, what would make someone in that court be a good judge? And the answer, other than saying me, right, is, well, why me, right? It's because of my background. I'm not seeking a position based on one position I'm not seeking to be a judge and have only done criminal defense, right? Or have only done prosecution or have not done any criminal law at all. I mean, I've been a police officer. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a criminal defense attorney. I've been a child advocate, and I am a judge dealing in multiple courts. So when decisions need to be made, there is a broad, comprehensive background from which I can rely on to make decisions that I think are appropriate. And, most importantly, I have the mindset that everybody that comes into the courtroom that I deal with now, they're my neighbor. Because quite frankly, they're somebody's neighbor. And so what is an appropriate consequence for somebody coming into that court as somebody's neighbor as my neighbor? And again, because Recorder's Court does not dispose or resolve serious felony cases, I'm not talking about people charged with murder, right? I'm not talking about people charged with armed robbery or rape or aggravated child issues, right? Because that's Superior Court. Recorder's Court doesn't even get to consider bond for those serious offenses. So as a Recorder's Court judge, more like a traffic court ordinance and misdemeanor judge, what are you doing to dispose of cases with fines, consequences, if they're necessary, all of that. So I think to your question of what is Recorder's Court, that's kind of the different kind of courts. That's what Recorder's Court is. And that's what I think would make a good judge in that court.
Yeah. And if I could add this, Julius, and then we have a question from the audience. One of the things that I believe judges should have, and I'm glad that you hear that you look at cases as if this were your neighbor. I actually went through a situation where I realized that judges should have some sense of normalcy, be down to earth, and that happened with me with my parents. So at the time, I got a speeding ticket. We were in the middle of COVID. I was going to get my second COVID vaccine. I was taking care of mom and dad. By the way, mom has Alzheimer's, so I got a traffic ticket. I ended up before Judge Stokes, who then said, okay, next time slow it down. I get it. And really had compassion. And I think that mattered because one of the comments she made, and I reminded her of this the other day after that, I'll never forget, she said, there's no manual for taking care of elderly parents. I've been there before, and, I'm going to balance it with that. And so I think a balance of understanding the law, interpreting the law, but being a real live human being, that matters. And I just want to get your comments on that.
So being a real, like I said, we're all in this human experience together, right? And so when I used to be a police officer, I would arrest individuals I alleged had violated the law, and maybe they got out on bond. In fact, I specifically remember going to Montgomery Crossroad the Walmart on Montgomery Crossroad a day after I arrested someone, and I ran into that person. We're shopping in the same place, and that person was with their friends. And had I treated that person less than how they needed to be treated, regardless of what they were accused of doing, that would have been an awkward interaction, could have been a volatile interaction, but I didn't. Doesn't mean I went easy or went hard. Doesn't mean any of that. Just we're all human beings. And if you treat each other as such, I can handle consequences that I'm facing better if I'm treated with dignity and respect at a common sense level. And so I've carried that on to being a judge, because another way to look at it is, if I'm a judge and I have a docket of 100 individuals on the docket, they are 100 individuals with whom I will interact in that capacity. I am the one judge they're interacting with that day, maybe ever, in that capacity. What will they take away from that interaction? How will they be treated for that one time that they had to come in front of a judge? And you can't lose sight of that. And again, going back to my police officer days, I never lost sight of the fact that if I was arresting someone, this was a moment in their life they will remember forever. You will never forget the day you go to jail. You never get the day that you're arrested. How are you treated, right? And you can't lose sight of that as a judge. I try not to lose sight of it as a judge, as an attorney, when I was a prosecutor, when I was a police officer. But because ultimately, when you lose sight of that, then you've lost the ability to be impartial, to be neutral, to be fair, to be balanced. And then you're no longer an appropriate person to be a judge. And that's just my respectful opinion.
And that, before you get to that question, Robert,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that I wanted to say, because you have a unique experience that your opponents don't have, I guess, because you served as a police officer and you saw those things that were happening firsthand on the street. It wasn't, most lawyers just get a case and they don't understand the circumstances. They don't understand the magnitude of the situation, because they weren't on the street to understand how you investigate a crime. But and that's one thing that when I was a police officer, and people right now today will remember me, and this 40 years ago, remember me from being a fair person. I didn't, you get a whole lot more out of people if you treat them fairly, if you treat them right. I often tell people, you don't go to work to cite and arrest. You go to work to protect and to serve. And you serving means that you treat everybody fairly. But, I just wanted to throw it in because you have a unique experience that other people don't have. But go ahead with the question, Rob.
Oh, I was gonna. Can I add on?
Go ahead, and then we'll go to this.
So, to that aspect, having that experience, when I deal with individuals now who are charged with domestic violence, for example, right? It's misdemeanor, but I have the experience of knowing that I went many times, dozens of times, to a house in response to a 911 call for domestic violence, and having to arrest a parent. Right. And having the wherewithal in that time, being told by older officers with more experience, do not put that parent in handcuffs in front of that child. Right. Because they've already experienced one level of trauma. Don't add another level of trauma. And so then when it comes to your day in court as a judge, you have to remember that it's not just you interacting with that person, and that's the only person involved or affected by what your decisions are. There are family members that have collateral consequences, again, of no fault of those individuals or the judge, but it's to the accused as accused. But you have to have in mind and have that reference to that. I'm not dealing just with this person when this case is disposed, that's before me. If it goes to a need to have a disposition, right? Because in America, we're all presumed innocent. We can't forget that. But if there's a need for a sentence, you got to have having that background, I think, has helped me in understanding when I sentence someone to a certain consequence to be held accountable, that it's not just that person that I'm sentencing that will be affected by it. And without being an attorney, but most importantly, without being a police officer, I'm not quite sure I'd have that level of understanding that I could relate. And so it's benefited me as a judge. It has.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll go to this. We have a question here from one of our viewers who says, this individual says that they are 17. Do you believe in youth under 18 receiving the death penalty or a life sentence?
And so that's one of those tricky questions that as a judge, I can't actually answer. I will say that every case is unique and it's different. And determinations of life sentences, unfortunately in Georgia law, as in federal law, but in Georgia law, there are some offenses, if you commit them a certain number of times, the consequence of being found guilty, for example, of murder is life, period. There is no, it's either life with parole, possibility of parole, life without the possibility of parole. And so if you're a 17-year-old and you're found guilty of murder, felony murder, malice murder, it doesn't really matter. Judges don't have the ability to go below that. It's the law. You can't say, yeah, I know you're 17, but you were convicted of murder, so I'm not going to sentence you to that. You don't have a choice, right? But when there are choices in play, the judge needs to be able to sit there and evaluate what the best outcome is for the community, for the victims in that case, if there's been a conviction, and then for the defendant. Because short of life sentences, people are coming back into the community, right? And so when you sentence individuals to jail time or to prison time, if you're not setting them up or setting up the ability for when those people return, those individuals return, they can then be your neighbor successfully, and you're just locking them away, that is, I'm going to say a very non-judicial word, that is stupid, right? That's just dumb. It's short-sighted. It's a simple, lazy way. And so with Recorder's Court, I don't have to worry about life sentences. All I have to worry about is, sentencing individuals, if there's a finding of guilt, to misdemeanor sentences, which carry a maximum of 12 months. Now, there could be multiple misdemeanors that have consecutive or back-to-back terms. But as to the question, if I would leave individuals under the age of 18 should be sentenced to life sentences, if I'm ever in the future in a position where I have to make that kind of ruling, that kind of clouds my ability to do so, to give that answer. All I know is that there are laws judges have to follow, but you have to take every case individually, because one 17-year-old is not the same as another 17-year-old. And so what might be appropriate in one case might not be appropriate in another case. So it really can't make those kind of decisions, I think, respectfully, unless you're presented with that case, the background, the facts, for that person's consideration. Because conversely, let's say I never believe in this, right? And I'm in a position later on and I make a certain decision. Aha, judge, you already said you were going to do this. You're biased, right? You've already made up your mind how you're going to treat this case. So it's a very good question for policy considerations, but just as a judge, I don't think it's good to make those kind of declarations.
Right. And one of the things, and Julius, I'd love to hear you jump in on this, but both of you all were officers, and now you will be making decisions in a space called a courtroom. Where does mental health show up in those spaces? I mean, a lot of times we talk about on different shows how we attend to physical health, and sometimes that can even impact, arrest or what's going on in the legal system. But how does mental health show up in you all's opinion, and should it show up?
Julius, or you want me to?
You go ahead first.
So mental health, mental health is prevalent in the criminal justice system. A lot of times, as an officer, I would experience individuals who are either having a break or going through episodes which involve the, quote, criminality or illegality aspect of conduct, which at the base or root was either trauma, undiagnosed trauma, or some serious issues such as bipolar disorder, mood dysregulation disorder, schizoaffective, those kinds of issues. And so you have to, as an officer, if someone is clearly has a need to have their mental health needs addressed, you have to, it depends on the facts and circumstances. If it's shoplifting, right, then that's something maybe you can focus more on. Let's get some mental health areas of concern. But when the alleged violations of law involve more serious issues such as harming other individuals, then you kind of have to, one, ensure that people are protected physically from further actions to the degree that you can, but also how do you then address, so it's safety first, then address mental health, versus when there's less serious, you could probably focus less on because there's no safety implications. That's, so as a judge, for example, in recorder's court, if somebody, so a lot of individuals in recorder's court that have issues of mental health just also happen to be issues with homelessness, because there's a strong connection between untreated mental health disorders and homelessness in our community and most communities. And so you can get creative at the recorder's court, municipal court level, and trying to get folks to the degree that they're willing or can services to address those mental health needs. Julius, I think that was, I don't know if that would be what you would say, but I think that's
that's mostly what I would have said. So you took it off from me. That's why I gave it to you first, because I didn't want to say it and didn't let you have nothing to say. So,
yeah.
But you run across these people every day, and you have to still treat them with dignity.
Right.
Some of them, for some reason, if they want to fight you, they get this superhuman strength from where I don't know. They could pick up a car when they're in that zone. So you still have to treat them with dignity, and it has to be a certain place in the lockup where you keep these people, because they're a danger to themselves and a danger to the public until they're back on their medication.
Can I give an example?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember in like 2009, I was on patrol in the South Side, going near J.C. Lewis Ford dealership. And this van was just driving up and down the access road erratically. I mean, it was 2:30 in the morning. I mean, just on the access road going like 65 miles an hour, swerving. So I got behind it, turn on my blue lights, and the person jumps out. It was a young African-American male, jumps out like he had, I think, I don't know, a stick in his hand or something, but he was acting very erratic. And at that point, I had already gone through some training for de-escalation training for, when individuals are going into breaks. I forget the exact terminology because I wanted to say the word. Now I can't. But with that training, I was able to recognize immediately that this person wasn't somebody that posed a threat of intentional harm, but more likely was somebody that seemed to be in an episode. And he was a young man. I mean, he was like 16, 17 years old. So he did not get shot by me, nor did I have an intention to shoot him. But I worry it would not have been out of the realm of possibility that another officer or any other situation that could have resulted in a shooting. And so because of the training that I received, I was able to recognize, at least looking back, or not in the moment, I recognize that, no, this person is not trying to hurt me. They just seem to be going through something. And so, with that experience, when I hear cases now as a judge, in Garden City Municipal Court and Pooler Municipal Court, sometimes facts are presented where there's a discussion of I know we're proceeding with this these criminal prosecution, but what else is going on the side to try to address the mental health needs that this seems to stem from? Because to harken back to that experience, that was something that's lived with me now 13 years. That one 30-minute interaction has stuck with me, that sometimes mental health can be misconstrued or misunderstood, and tragedy can result from it, right? Such that situation. Because quite honestly, had I acted in a different way under Georgia law, I probably would have been justified, and it would have been tragic because it would have ultimately been unnecessary in that situation. I say unnecessary in the sense that I was able to luckily do something else. But had I not been able to do something else, then it would have been a different story. So mental health is real. And one last thing on it. So in my work in juvenile advocacy, there is studies that have been coming out to show that kids with PTSD on Adderall, on medications to help them focus, a lot of those ADHD, not PTSD, but ADHD and ADD diagnoses are really misdiagnosed trauma. Mm-hmm. And if we don't, not to say that, aha, we have the solution, now we can different medication. No, now we can work on trauma-based cognitive therapy issues in younger youth, because undiagnosed trauma develops into antisocial personality disorders sometimes, more often than not, which then leads to less sense of I should do the right thing, I should act the right way, which then leads to criminality because there's a lack of respect for others as humans, for the law, and it just trickles down. And so I think the more we can address issues of trauma in our community, starting at an earlier age, and it's not lost once you get an adult, we can kind of address issues of criminality, because trauma, again, brings into, and I might be preaching to the choir, but that introduces ideas, undiagnosed, untreated, to then develop those antisocial issues, which ultimately lead to, for example, high crime rate with guns, because there's a lack of value of human life. Why is there a lack of value of human life? Is it all trauma-based? No, but I would be shocked and surprised if a large majority of these senseless incidents that are happening aren't related to some sense of untreated trauma, undiagnosed trauma. So mental health is prevalent, right? And it doesn't mean we're a lost cause. It's just we have to, as a community, acknowledge and recognize that and address it.
Well, one of the things I'm glad to hear, a lot of times, people go into different positions or whatever and have a very tunnel vision, but you have a very broad perspective and bring different elements. So it's good to hear that you had the on the street experience, you've had the law school experience, you had the military experience, you have this ability to think outside the box. So you're thinking about it from a cognitive structure. So you bring a lot to the table, which is really, really good. And I think in any profession, Julius, really good to hear these things.
Yeah. We got Mr. Ellis say, you seem to be very fair. Would you be the same type of U.S. Supreme Court judge? I like you and will vote for you. Okay.
Well, I'm not smart enough to do that. So, but I appreciate I appreciate that sentiment.
Yes, Bernard, correct. He and I'll let our guest judge tell you what he's running for, and that'd be a great segue, Judge, if you would talk about your platform.
Okay.
Put it up there. I forgot to put it up there too.
That's what the Devil Bears do.
So Joe Huffman's my name. I'm running for Chatham County Recorder's Court Judge to replace Chief Judge Tammy Stokes, who's ascending to the Superior Court of Chatham County. She has an open seat. It's myself, as long as two other individuals running. So my platform, like the background quickly, or what would.
Well, what are the things that you hope to achieve while in office? Of course, being fair, but what are some things that you are kind of putting in your vision for the Recorder's Court?
So Recorder's Court, the volume of Recorder's Court is massive. And what I've learned in other municipal courts is, and I know there's some development of this, but we can expand the use of diversion programs, right? Look, there are situations where individuals commit acts and it is then proven, and then there should be consequences. I mean, anyone who has come and seen me in court has seen that when there is a need for what I say harsh, is just you put individuals into custody without being released for a period of time for the safety of witnesses, the community, and the threat of fleeing, not showing up to court, or a risk to commit a felony or a crime. I've made those decisions. I don't make them lightly, but I make them. Just because I believe in equal justice under the law does not mean that I believe in everybody go home with a cupcake out of jail, right? That would be stupid to think that. Nor do I think that equal justice under the law, that everybody has to have the same kind of consequence and penalty. Everybody is different. Every situation is different. You cannot deal with person A the same as person B, regardless if they did the exact same things, because their backgrounds could be completely and are likely completely different. So what I want to see, or what I will do if elected, is continue to bring that sense of individuality, individual treatment, equal treatment of everyone to the courtroom. There are other ways to ensure Equal justice. I mean, look, traffic court, right? So a lot of individuals get tickets that might not be from here. And sometimes they might live hours and hours away. And if they just, because they don't want to come back, even though they still want to plead guilty or accept responsibility, go ahead and pay their ticket online, right? They might not get the benefit had they been local and could have maybe gotten some leniency as to points or leniency into other aspect. It doesn't have collateral consequences. So with our technology, I'd like to see the development of virtual or remote means of conducting some hearings, right, to allow for individuals that live out of state who want to plead guilty or resolve their case or deal with the initial stages without having to incur the financial burden, time burden of coming back to address what they allegedly did. Even if it's to plead not guilty, right? To have somebody have to drive 4 hours to come down here and say, I'm not guilty, or 4 hours to come down and say, I am guilty, but I just want points on off my license, they've lost a day of pay. So to develop the technological involvement of the court is a goal of mine. Also, and this is a crazy thought, and I have in no way conferred with the sheriff or the clerk's office, but it is difficult for individuals in the community to take off half a day or a full day of work to go down to the courthouse to deal with a traffic ticket, right? I think I heard a story that someone was in Parker's the other day, and they couldn't afford what they were wanting to get. So somebody else chipped in and like, yeah, I had to take the day off of work so I could go and deal with this traffic ticket. And I don't know how I'm going to pay the traffic ticket. And I don't know how I'm going to make if I have to pay the ticket, how I'll pay rent. Why not introduce a form of, night court, right? So every Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. for traffic citations only, give the option for teachers or for individuals who can't take off, which might cost less to hire a babysitter for 2 hours than taking off all day of work, to be able to come in and deal with their traffic ticket, especially if they want to resolve it just without those collateral consequences of higher insurance rates. And so those kind of three things: bring that sense of justice, equal justice under the law, bring a sense of trying to make it more technologically up to date to be able to help individuals resolve cases more efficiently, and then offer some other services such as night court. And again, I've talked to nobody about the possibility of it, but it'll be something I think could work well. I'm not talking about having trials at 6 p.m., but you got a speeding ticket, you want to come into court and address it, that seems like it could be a good way to have it dealt. Look at the ports, right? Those guys and ladies work 12-hour shifts and they get off work. And then, so let's say they work 8 to 8, right? So they work 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Then they got to wait till 9 a.m. for their court date. So they're going to be exhausted and tired, drive to court to deal with that. Now they have lack of sleep, can't possibly be able to go to work efficiently. But, it's just as dangerous to drive tired as it is drunk. Right. So after working a 12-hour shift, we're asking our community members to drive down to the courthouse. Just all these little things can add up to, we can do it more efficiently. We can do it in a better way. Why don't we try? And I know they have tried. I mean, we have good judges in this district. We have very good judges. And I would never comment on any judge, mostly because I still have to appear before them as a defense attorney, and I don't want to deal with them. No, it would be inappropriate. And quite honestly, I don't have to worry about that also because we have great judges in the circuit. So, but
one of the things you mentioned a moment ago, and I'm glad to hear that you are thinking about individuals who come from income challenged backgrounds. In those cases where, like you said, they have miles of fee, pay rent, could there be a situation that we explore maybe one day where we are assigning service? So, for example, let's say this person owns a lawn care business. Maybe they can do some service around that, or some other talents they have. They can perform services in lieu of maybe a financial component.
Man, I'm so glad you said that point. We had a forum the other day, Recorder's Court Judge forum, and I said then, and I'll repeat it now, we cannot have this mindset in our criminal justice system that fines are the only consequences that can work, because that's a lazy mindset. And quite honestly, it benefits those who can afford it. And quite honestly, fines for those who can afford it, those fines are no longer a deterrent, right? I mean, it's meaningless to have those things in place. It's not uncommon for me as a judge now to fine somebody $150 for speeding, right? And ask, can you pay that today? And they say, no, I can't pay that today. I probably won't be able to pay it for 2 months. which then begs the question, then why am I fining this person? Is there something else that they could do to be, quote, held accountable that alleviates the need for a fine? Again, the whole point of having consequences is try to avoid similar behavior in the future. So if I can achieve that goal, then I will, and commonly do, find alternate means of what's called sentencing, right? And so in recorder's court, that's going to involve it's all misdemeanors because you can't sentence folks to felonies. And so what is a deterrent for this kind of conduct if fines are not an option? And fines shouldn't be the first. I mean, they're commonly, because it's easy just to fine people because that's what's known. That's the way it's always been. But yeah. So, all right, look, I was going to fine you $200 instead, 20 hours of community service, you got 60 days to do it. Another way to completely think about it is if somebody gets a citation for having a suspended driver's license and they come in and say, I plead guilty. If I find them guilty, their license is resuspended again. And if that happens within a certain period of time, it becomes a felony. Is that what we need as a community? Right. It might be what we need, that this person can't stop, they can't do the things they need to do. And in that situation, maybe that is necessary. But I always ask before I make any determination, can you get your license back? And they say, yes, I got to do these 4 things. It's either I have a child support hold, I have, I didn't appear in another court, or some other circumstances that could be resolved. And I say, well, how long would it take you? Say, well, it'll take me 60 days. All right, well, I'll give you 90 days, come back with your license, and I will probably resolve your case in a way that does not resuspend your license. Because what do we want in that situation? We want that person to be driving in the road with a valid license, which means that they are appropriate to be driving on the road license-wise. That's what we want as a community. Why would I then fine them out the yin yang, which might make it harder to get it? It doesn't make sense, it's just lazy to do it that way. And recorder's court deals a lot with that. There's a lot of talk out there with high crime in the community, which if you want, we can talk about that stuff as well. But to those questions as to fines, they shouldn't be the first and only mindset of how to resolve cases, because it's simple thinking, and it's just simply dumb to think that way.
Somebody said, wasn't there a question on there about Supreme Court or something?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll go back to it.
Oh yeah, would you want to be a Supreme Court judge? I know I saw it in there somewhere. Oh, you said you're not that. Okay, you say you're not ready for that.
No. I'm not. Look, I think
Supreme Court.
Say what?
How about the Georgia Supreme Court?
That's a good one.
Good. Again, this campaign has forced me to talk about myself, which I hate to do. So I will answer.
They'll teach you how to do it.
Yeah. So I will answer. I have spent most of my adult life serving, and this is an amazing opportunity to serve in a way that I have the background and experience, not the words, the actions. My life has been preparing me for something like this. I similarly continue to prepare myself for to be able to serve in any way that I can, and if that opportunity were ever to arise, and I felt that I could be more than just in name only. If I thought, I could be on that court, but I would be doing it in name only, it wasn't fully prepared or qualified or able to do it, I would be doing a disservice to take that job away from somebody who could actually do a better job than me. And I am by far not a better person than my 2 opponents in this case, but I am a much better candidate than they are, period. And because I don't like to talk about people as who's a better person or not. That's an inappropriate conversation. But as far as candidates go, there is no debate. I am qualified for this job. I am the most qualified for this job in this race. Quite honestly, I'm not sure who else could jump in that would be more qualified than me at this point in time, other than an incumbent, which I then would not have run probably. But depending. But yeah, Supreme Court, Georgia Supreme Court, they are so amazingly smart. They're so accomplished. That is such a great way to serve in the legal community, because their voice and their determinations have such huge impacts at a macro level. In recorder's court, it's a little more micro, but it's why you should care more about who gets voted locally, because they determine when your trash is picked up, right? That's the same kind of reason you should determine your recorder's court judge. Because again, going back to what I said way a long time ago, you're going to have more interaction with a recorder's court judge more likely than any other judge. Supreme Court would be amazing, but you will probably never appear in the Supreme Court.
Well,
never say never.
Well, I see commitment to service in your attitude and your passion, because you can make so much more money as a great criminal defense attorney in this county because crime is so rampant. You can make so much money, much more money as a personal injury lawyer here in this county because everybody runs into everybody. You know, nobody here can drive. So it just and if somebody puts themselves up for service the way that you do, there's an old saying, you either the person that wants to move into a job that pays less than what they could make is either lazy or they want to be or now they were either crazy or they wanted to serve the people,
Right.
And so I guess you just crazy and want to serve the people.
Yeah, I get that. I get that from my mom. She's been a school teacher now 40 plus years. She used to work at Moses Jackson Elementary School. I mean, I used to run up and down the halls of Moses Jackson. They were like, please, somebody tell that 5-year-old boy to stop running up and down these halls. But her dedication to service as a special needs teacher showed me what it takes to truly invest yourself in others who need your protection, need your service. And quite honestly, growing up with her working 2 jobs nonstop as a single mother of 3 kids also has had a huge impact on when someone tells me they can't afford a fine or do a certain condition. Because another aspect of having community service hours, you then put on some individuals who might not be able to take off work to do the community service. So what I'll do in those situations is just give them more time to do it. But, I say this all the time. I am from this community. Ultimately, to me, which means I'm for this community because I have been here. I will continue to be here. It produced me. It's producing my children. They look at me and how I treat others. And again, so I didn't give this analogy before, but I'll do it now. One of the reasons I'm running for this court in this position is growing up, my brother and I, my middle brother and I always knew how to change tires. We would always stop on the side of the road and help folks who were changing a tire by themselves. When I was a police officer, I would help people change tires because I knew how to do it. And sometimes some individuals don't, even if they did, it's unsafe for somebody to be on the side of the road by themselves changing their own tire. So I'd pull over because I knew, and that was the way I could contribute. Everything that I've done in my professional life has given me an opportunity to help change this tire in recorder's court because I'm not coming from an aspect of, ooh, I think these things. No, I've practiced these things. I've served in these ways. I know what I'm talking about. I've put it into action. And this is a good opportunity to take everything I've done and put it into practice in that capacity. Otherwise, why did I do all this, right? Why did I, if not to take it, to try to get for this opportunity, then what have I been doing? And to answer to that point, Julius, then that would kind of go towards, I have no interest in serving. I just want to make money, but I don't. Don't get me wrong. I love making money, but that's not the point of this. I like making money to make sure my kids are fed and protected and safe, as every parent does. But I've seen it done the wrong way. I've seen it done the right way. I try to do it the right way. I'll continue to do that if elected on May 24th. Early voting starts Tuesday. Everybody should get out and vote if they want to avoid lines. But yeah, service is key to me because we should all serve without getting into, religion and all that stuff. I mean, we should just all serve each other because, it's the reason my wife and I moved in with her grandfather who has dementia because we're here and we were able to do so. We have a lot of family in town, but we were able to step up and do our part. And I'm glad we did because it's enriching my kids' lives. And I hoped that my actions as a judge, as it did as a police officer, as an attorney, I have a way to enrich other people's lives by making sure they feel heard. They had their day in court.
So it's more it's more than just you, and you got a brother that's a lawyer also that was on the police department with you.
Yes. So my brother Andrew and I joined the police department together. He's now in the United States Army JAG Corps out in Arizona. Yeah, we were on the streets together, which was, I mean, when we were serving as officers, like, man, it's crazy how we're police officers here. We used to be kids in that high school, right? Or we used to live in that neighborhood, and now we are those who respond when someone calls 911. And Savannah, like you said, everybody can't stop running into each other. Everybody can't stop talking to each other. People used to tell my mom all the time, "Oh, your son arrested so and so," and she'd come back and say, "I heard you arrested Miss Smith's son." Like, how did you hear about that? Right? And it was like, well, they said you were very nice. I'm like, well, thank God I was nice. Because I don't need my mom all up on me because I violated her values that she instilled in me. So, but yeah, no, it's my brother and I have a sense that, my family has a sense of, my brother have a sense that we have been given opportunities to develop experience, education, knowledge. We have an obligation to put that into use as community members, because if not us, then who? And if it's those who, well, I don't trust those who, and maybe it should be me, because I trust myself. So,
well, and Julius, I think we have one final question, and we'll close out. But I think you know Ferrante better than I do, so I understand the question, but I want to make sure we place in the right context.
Will you protect the rights and property of men and women? I don't know what context that is, but
Right, I'm just like I don't know.
I
I
guess
guess
it's
yes.
simple. As a judge, I guess you're gonna have to, right?
Right. I guess maybe is that. I guess, and I'll take a stab at this. Is maybe how do you interpret the law? Your ways of interpreting the law. Maybe I don't know. Taking the law. Just leave there.
So all right. So in the jury trials, because in the last 12 months, I've actually been an attorney in 4 different jury trials, 3 for murder and 1 in federal court. So I don't just talk the talk about an experience. I have the experience. But I tell juries all the time, this is America, right? And in America, we have a lot of rights that are very important to all of us. And one is our liberty, right? And our liberty to be free from constraint, unless there's a justifiable reason to restrain us, such as committing a crime against others. And in those situations, even when accused of committing a crime, you're presumed innocent unless it can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty, either by evidence submitted in court or a guilty plea. And so those rights that you have that are protected by the Constitution should be defended by everyone, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and judges, because otherwise, what's the point of having those rights in the Constitution, right? Just do whatever you want. So when I think the question, would I protect the rights of men and women? I don't prejudge cases, right? I will treat everybody individually with dignity and respect, and make decisions based on the circumstances and facts that come before me as a judge, as I have done. I will continue to do. And so to answer that question, I will ensure that people's rights are protected, regardless of their age, their race, their gender. If I'm a judge, I will ensure that a human being's rights are protected to the best that I can. I do it. I've done it. I did it as a police officer, did it as a defense attorney, a prosecutor, a guardian ad litem, especially, but as a judge, yes. So to answer the question, I will ensure that people's rights are protected by ensuring equal justice under the law. If that means their property rights are protected, then that's what that means. If it means their liberty is protected, then that's what it means. If it means the community is protected because someone wasn't released on bonds, then that's what that means. I will, so yes, I will protect the rights of individuals equally under the law and follow the law, most importantly.
Yeah, I think this, and this is a question from Tara, but I think, Tara, this is something all judges have to do, and that's that when you take the time to educate those who have cases before the hearing start of the different level of pleas, and I think that's just a normalcy that's kind of a standard, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so before a judge can accept like a guilty plea, for example, they have to make sure that the person entering the plea is doing so, 1, knowingly, and 2, voluntarily. So knowingly is not just knowing they did wrong, right? And that's not what it means. It's knowing the possible outcomes, possible consequences, knowing the rights that they have to when accused of committing a crime, and knowing the process and procedure and how to get those rights exercised. Knowing your rights doesn't mean you're going to be found not guilty. It just means before you move forward, you do so knowing what could happen and what you know, how you can maximize protecting your rights. And so voluntarily, it involves, if you plead guilty, it's not because somebody is forcing you to do so by saying, I'll pay your mom $1 million if you plead guilty, or I'm going to kill your dog if you don't plead guilty, or, so knowingly and voluntarily, a judge has to make sure a plea is entered into with those two things in place. And so, at the beginning of every docket, I lay out a series of, these are your rights. This is the process and procedure. These are the possible consequences we have. And I, before accepting a guilty plea, ask, you understand those rights? Are you under the influence of any mind-altering substances that affect your ability to understand what's happening? Because if somebody comes in the court drunk, I'm not going to take a guilty plea from them because, one, they might not be doing voluntarily, but they might not know what's going on. Same with medications, right? So it's the judge's ethical responsibility to make sure before any human enters a plea of guilty admitting to a crime, that they do so with those parameters in place. One, they're doing it knowingly, knowing the consequences and facts and or the possible outcomes, involuntarily, that nobody's forcing them to do it. And forcing someone to do it is weird because, well, I'm being prosecuted, right? I don't want to be found guilty at trial, so I feel like I'm being forced. That's not what it means. It's the coercion, the duress, that kind of stuff.
Is any last thoughts you got? Or?
No,
I feel like I'm just. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
I don't have any last questions. I just wanted to thank the judge. We got about 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes, something like that left. But I want to thank you for coming on and giving our audience a view of what type of judge you are and what type of judge you will be going forward. So we appreciate it.
I appreciate you, because I've also heard comments that sometimes, and people have asked me, we've been told things in the community that you'll say things to get elected and then individuals turn out to be different people. And the glorious part about my situation is I am who I am. I have been who I am, and I will continue to be who I am. You don't have to wonder about the kind of judge I am and going to be, because it's the kind of judge I am and have been, period. Does that mean I've sentenced people to 12 months to serve? Absolutely. Does it mean I've had cases dismissed because I found no probable cause? Absolutely. Why? Because those were individual, separate cases that I gave individualized consideration. Again, treating people equally does not mean that you're going to let everybody out on bond, right? It also doesn't mean you're going to lock everybody else up. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, they're like, we're leaving. In the last, say hey. Well, last 12 months or last 30 days, last month alone, I've probably had 25 bond hearings. Some people got bond. Some people didn't get bond. And the individuals who I did not grant bond, there were specific reasons that were based on that person's background and based on my perceived risk. If they had a significant risk of harming others, committing crime, intimidating a witness, or not showing up to court. And the people I did grant bond, there were conditions on every single one of those bonds, because I don't believe you should get out on a bond just by paying money. There should be other things in place to ensure, safety, and that all those things are in place. And so you don't have to worry about the kind of judge I am. You're going to hear a lot of fear mongering by some people in this race. You're going to hear a lot of, look, this race comes down to myself, everything that I bring to the table. You have a candidate who, you know what, I'm not going to comment on that. That would be inappropriate as a judge, so I won't. I'll focus on myself. I bring what's needed, and there's literally nothing else that can be said to take away from the fact that I will continue to try my hardest to justify the support that I've received and try my hardest to earn the trust and support that I have not yet received. And that's all I can do. I'm not perfect, but I try my hardest. And HuffmanForJudge.com is my website. It has all my contact information. I am available. I can't give legal advice. I'm just not allowed because it'd be unethical. I am available for questions if people want to ask more about my thoughts and practices. I also have coffee. Get a cup of Joe with Judge Doe, at some coffee shops around town.
That might be a new show, Julius. That's a new show.
Look, it's campaign time. I got to come up with fun sounding things. But
Hey,
I'll go to
show.
yeah. That sounds good. Cup of Joe with Judge Joe. I literally go to a coffee shop and get some coffee, and if people come and ask me questions. Hey, what's your experience with this situation or this kind of law, or have you ever had to deal with this, right? And if I can answer, I will, because a judge should be available. We're not hidden away in a closet, right? And just brought out, make rulings, and then go back to the closet. You never see or hear from us, right? I live in this community. Always have, always will.
Well,
I feel like I've done a whole lot of talking. Yeah.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah. This has been really informative, educational. I'm glad to. I was very pleased to hear what I heard, and it wasn't this us versus them kind of a thing that we've always traditionally heard from people we've encountered in definitely not Chatham County. Chatham County has the best judges, and I'm telling them myself, so I'll be quiet. So,
well, you know what? Because the bottom line, doctor, is that we're all us. We're all them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of us. Like, it just, an individual, even individuals that quote commit crime, they should be held accountable, but that does not make them not us, and right? It does not make them them. They're just us who then need to have their day in court, be held accountable, if appropriate. I mean, it's just, I've encountered that us versus them stuff, and it's just, that should not be our mentality, because as a judge, when someone walks in the courtroom, it's not me versus anyone, right? It's me making sure that person there realizes we are all us and all them, and what should happen to you, that particular person, on that particular day, based on who that particular person is. So I don't have the luxury of a judge as having that mentality. And so I don't even bother trying to have it.
All right.
Somebody said, what was that? Will his name be on the ballot? What?
Okay. Well,
I think you're all. Leave him up there at least 3 seconds, Robert.
I had it up there 3 seconds. You'll be on the Chatham County ballot.
It's Chatham County. It's a little lower ballot.
Do that too. He just want to be a devil bear.
Oh, thank you, Tara. Tara said yes, Ivan. Yes, it's Chatham County. You see all my signs all around town. You're going to see mailers. You're going to get text messages. You're going to see. If you don't see enough, let me know. I'll get more out there. But yes, it's countywide. And gentlemen, you have been amazing for giving me this opportunity to speak. I appreciate you.
Well, let me add that.
Would love to come back with this.
We need some. Yep. So, Julius, you got some signs? We can. Yeah,
you can get some
to put up.
I'll get you one.
We need about 5. I need to get Liberty City set up for you. So we appreciate you, and we'll see y'all next week. Same time, same bat channel. Thanks for watching All Things Relevant Media. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jeff.